Hey there, I'm Kathy with the Traveling Homesteader and Gyroscope Farm, and today we're going to be doing wreaths. And I'm actually right now at a space where there's a group of us that are going to be making wreaths, and this is kind of the base of it. But with greens, you can use a lot of different things to make a nice kind of holiday-esque piece in your home. You can do wreaths, you can do centerpieces, you can do all sorts of different cool things that'll kind of brighten your home. I am out in the woods to get some greens for making some centerpieces for Christmas. I'll be showing you a couple of different things in a couple of different places on how people can make wreaths and centerpieces, and just a couple of different things using different greeneries for different textures. Basically, when I look for greens, I look for ones that are stiff or more upright, ones that lay a little bit different, a little bit limp. I happen to be looking at things like blue spruce, at Scotch pine or Scotch broom, we also call it here in Oregon. Just various different types of greens from fir trees or fir-related trees. And you can find these. I happen to live out in the woods or near the woods, so that's where I go to get them free. But if you are living in a place near Christmas tree farms or where they sell trees, like at a tree lot, you can always go to a tree lot and ask for anything that's been cut, and they'll give you all the free cuttings that you like. And so let's go check out some different things here in the woods you can use in your decorating. So now this is something that I call Scotch broom, and it's here in Oregon. It's actually considered a bit of a noxious weed, and you can see some black pods out here, and that's the seed that disperses in the summer. It actually has a really nice yellow flower on it in the summer, and when the pods release, you can hear this pop, and it just disperses the seeds of this plant kind of into the air, and it floats along the way. And it actually is invasive to where we are. So by cutting this, it helps. But these look really nice in centerpieces and in wreaths because of the straightness of it, and it has a lot of height to it. So I'm going to be cutting some of these to add to my wreath and a centerpiece I'm making for some untraditional texture in my arrangements. I'm actually going to be picking some of this here. And to be honest, I'm not sure what it's called, but I like the leaves and how there's a little bit of a variegation to it. In the stems, you can see that there's a little bit of red, but also that the leaves are a little bit different than the greens. So it'll help give a little bit of variety to my arrangements that I'll be making. So you can see here, this is a nice fir tree with some open needle space here. Now, you'll see that this is a bit different than the Scotch broom, completely different variety plant, but within the fir population, there's different varieties, like blue spruce, white pine, just a bunch of different ones. So we're going to be looking for a variety of this stuff, and we're going to take a couple of sprigs of this from a couple of plants to kind of give us some nice variety. But then we're also going to be looking for some other plants to put into our greens. So while I have the opportunity, I just want to point out some different types of trees. So these are some trees on somebody's property that I'm not going to go picking on. But I wanted to point out that this one right here is Scotch pine. I was able to pick Scotch broom, different species, you might say, but this is another type of fir that is a little bit more open and has a little bit different texture to it, longer pine needles, and it's actually really kind of a nice one to add into arrangements like we're making. But like I said, because this is somebody's property, I'm not going to go pick on it unless I get their permission, and to be honest, I'm not sure if I know who owns this property, so that'll take a lot of extra effort. But I just wanted to point that out so you kind of saw what that was. To get a little closer so you can see the detail a little bit better, that's what that, like the leaves or the needles look like on that tree. They're really rather nice and long and fluffy, and really do add kind of a nice different dimension to an arrangement. Part of the nice thing about living on the property where I do is that there's a lot of cool trees to use in greens, like this holly tree. And luckily, now we still have some red berries on them. Some of the holly trees on our property have lost their berries, but luckily it's early December and they still have it, and the birds haven't picked them off. And so I'm going to be picking some holly for my arrangements and some hemlock up the hill, along with some other greens, some other tree greens to help put into my plants. But I wanted to show you this and realize that holly trees do come in a couple of different variations. This one is just more the traditional, and it's a solid green with red berries. But they do have some now that are variegated, and they're the green with the, like, kind of either a yellow outline or yellow spots on the leaves, and those are nice to have too. So either way, holly is a nice thing to have as a traditional item in an arrangement, whether it's a wreath or a tablescape or a swag. So if you get the chance to get some holly, come and check out how that might look in our final result. Hey there, now that I'm in my workspace to actually put something together for you, I thought I'd show you what I got in my haul. So you might remember these kind of green leaves that I'd gotten that I didn't know the name of, but I liked because of the stems having red in with the green leaves. And then we got the Scotch pine, or Scotch broom. And then we have some hemlock from where I live. So I got a stash of loopy hemlock here. And then I did end up getting from my kind of hedge and another type of pine that has a little softer look, but again a different texture than the hemlock and the Scotch broom and the leaves. And I also have some holly over here with some red berries on it. But then I have also gotten I went to a local tree lot and was able to kind of pick up some scraps there, and was able to pick up a nice variety of things. Not a lot, but more like the Scotch pine that I pointed out at the side of the road, along with some other, what I'm going to call mystery pines, because I just don't know the varieties. But this is a little bit, I want to say maybe this is more of an alpine type pine, but it's a little bit thinner, a little bit more open. But again, it's a little bit more of a variety. I have a little bit more of a variety over here. So now that I have kind of the variety I want, there's a couple of ways that I can put these together. Now, we had pointed out initially about doing wreaths. So that's why I have these wreath forms, you might say. And you can, these are really nice and hefty. I got them with some ladies that I was working with, and I'll show you them in a moment. But you can get these sorts of frames, maybe not as strong, but like at the Dollar Tree, or you may be able to find some online through Amazon that are a little bit more hefty, like this one. These are really good at being reusable as well. So these are wreath frames or forms. You come in different, I've seen them at the Dollar Tree in circles like this, but also in a candy cane shape, in a cross shape, various different shapes that you can get if you like. So that's one way we're going to use the greens. But another way that you can make greens is in a container. And again, I happen to get this at the Dollar Tree. If you want to use a container, it could be any shape you like. Even use a glass jar or in a mug. I happen to see a couple mugs that you could use that were really nice too. If you have a container, whether it's like this or a mug, you're gonna want to get I call it floral foam. In fact, that's what they call it here. And this I happen to get at Dollar Tree. It's more of a styrofoam at the Dollar Tree, but if you get a true floral foam, it's a softer foam, and it actually helps absorb water so that you can actually put water in this. Now, in this particular case, this variety, I'm going to use this piece, what looks to be one piece, in here for a centerpiece. But when we take this outer plastic off, there's actually 4 smaller pieces that you could put in something like a jar or a mug. So that's something to consider too. When we make the wreath, you don't need this styrofoam, but you will need wire. Now, this floral wire is a little bit, it's a little bit different and it's stronger. And so in some of the people that I'm going to show you, that I was able to go to a wreath making night, and some of these ladies are making really good wreaths, and they use this crafting wire to help wrap around their bundles of greens onto the frame, onto these frames. And so that's what I'm going to kind of show you a little bit to start too, but then we'll see how they did it as well. But then I also got just a little bit of extra something for just a little bit of decoration to add a little sprucing up. Now, you can add something like these kind of fake flowers or berries. You can add bows, and I have some, and we will see some of that too. But for these greens, we're just going to kind of put them together, and we're going to actually start by looking at the wreath. Now, when we look at the wreath, the basic form, like I said, is this round shape. Now, as we get going in these wreaths, the important part is to start small. And for what I want to do is I'm just going to take little pieces like this that I've already cut, and I'm going to kind of put a bunch together. I'm going to want to have my clippers nearby because these are really important. When I use my clippers, I'm going to take pieces of similar sizes and kind of clump my greens together, so that when I put them on the frame, they can kind of show off. So for example, I have a couple of different greens here that I'm putting together, and I generally like to put the bigger or longer pieces behind the the shorter pieces. So like, for example, this piece is rather long. These are a little bit shorter. So I'm going to layer them a bit, and this one's a little bit wonky, so I'm not going to use it at this time. I'm going to use it for at another point. But then I have this hemlock that I'd like to use, and I'm probably going to add a little bit more of the hemlock. I have some pieces of hemlock that I've kind of cut together. And kind of, as you can see, this is going to be my front side. And what I might end up doing too along the way is adding some of these greens or some of these leaves. So now, basically, my bottom is right here. And I'm going to try to make my bottom, all the stems, the same length. By trimming them up, it allows me to layer them around my wreath form a little bit better. It also allows me to work with my wire. Got junk on there. It allows me to work with my wire a little easier. So what I'm going to do is just take the end of my wire, wrap it around the stems of my greens, and I'm going to do a bit of a tight pull around. And then, because I have a bit of a tail, I'll show you a little bit close up. So you can see I'm taking my wire and wrapping it around the end of my bundle. Because I've now done that and pulled, it's nice and tight together, which is kind of handy. So now I'm going to take my frame, and I'm going to place my better side, which is this side, of my greens on my frame. And with this particular frame, because of the two portions, you can either wrap around one or two of them, or even use this cross piece to attach your bundles to. Now because I don't want to waste a whole lot of wire, I'm going to just go in the middle here. And now I've attached my green piece to my frame. And then I can go to my next piece or bundle. And in this case, I'm going to then come and get another grouping of greens. Now I will point out, it is better to have more sharp or sharper clippers. It helps clip the ends a lot better. But as you can see with this particular bunch, it is a little bit different than my last one. And that's okay. I kind of prefer to have more variety in my wreaths than just one look of greenery. So now I'm going to take and put my second bundle on the inside of my other bundle. Now when I say the inside, I mean I'm going to use the smaller of the two rings. But before I do that, I'm going to actually try to wind this up a little bit. And I'm going to keep my wire attached to the previous bundle on the form. So now I'm going to have the two side-by-side bundles, and I'm going to try to wrap my wire around both wires. Now, while I wanted to go on this inner part, it was easier to go around both to attach this second bundle. Sometimes you need to make adjustments like that to get these on. So I will now work my way around the frame to attach more on my frame.
Dungeons and Dragons.
Any reserved time?
So see, you can kind of see how it's layering together. I'm making mine a little flat right now, but as you can see in some of these other examples, people are making them a lot fluffier or more three-dimensional. And you can do that by adding your bundles in different ways. And for ease of working, many people will just drop their ends to the floor, and you can always clean that up later. But as we build this, you can see with different people, they like to have different looks for their wreaths. And that's the fun part of making a wreath, is that there's so many different ways that you can configure it. Some people will make it nice and fluffy. Some people will have it thinner. Some people will have it thicker. And so when we do this, no two wreaths will almost ever be the same, which is kind of part and parcel the fun of making wreaths. And while you can add different things along the line, you can also take out as you need to. And by doing that, you can adjust the width of your wreath. And sometimes people will use just what they have, or they may, as my mom used to say when she would go for walks, she'd she'd suddenly make friends and be able to get flowers or other things from people's yards because she either asked or they were in the sidewalk. And so by using what you see in the area, really kind of does help you adjust what your final product will look like. Now, as you see here, I am using both the inner circle and the outer circle to layer my wreath. And you can kind of see I'm about 1/3 of the way through now. But as you may have seen with other people's, they are doing things in a little different way. They may not be adding the different types of textures that I am, and that's okay. It is really up to you how you want to make your wreath. So now you can see I've gotten even a different bunching of greens than I'd had before. I've so far included holly and about 4 different types of pine into my wreath. Now, you may even want to incorporate herbs like rosemary and the stiffer kind of herbs to help with the scenting your home if you wanted to have it inside. Or if you want to incorporate other things, other live plants, you're more than welcome to as well. So as you can see by what other people have been doing, they are integrating different things and making sure that their greens are really nice and tight on their frames, but also they're using bows. And if we look at how people are making their bows, this one woman was able to bring a bow making machine, or I guess a bow making machine is what you call it. Basically, it's a pegboard that allows you to manipulate the ribbon in a way to help you have a really nice bow in a variety. You can make a variety of different sizes, and depending on what style of bow you want to make, you can kind of accommodate on this pegboard. And as you can see, what she's done is she's incorporated a couple of different things. One being she twists the ribbon around the peg so the better side shows. And that's something to kind of be aware of as well, is how your bow will turn out, depending on if there's a pattern on one side or both sides. But she can see how she even she does them in different ways, and she fluffs them and does a couple of different things. As I'm filling mine out, you can kind of see how it's coming along. It's gotten nice and big and round and fluffy. But as I'm doing this, I'm trying to steadily place greens in a place that it'll fit in. Sometimes we got to look at how our wreath is coming along to see where to fill in. So like, for example, if I hold this up, I'm getting some more direct and long pieces at what is now the top. And I may come back through there and trim it off or tuck it in a way to kind of make it look a little bit better. But again, I kind of like mine a little bit more organic, and so I'll check and see how I feel about it towards the end. But the process is kind of the important part to me, is I really enjoy seeing how it all fits together. And by putting in some of these different greens, it has a really nice fragrance, which is really kind of a bonus point to me. That's kind of what this season's all about, is getting nice fresh smells that you may not smell at other times of the year. And so when we do this, we can decorate these kind of in a variety of different ways, depending on what you want to do. Using this technique, you can do a lot of different things. So as I'm putting it together, I don't have that much more to go. So hopefully it'll come together quick. So I will point out, I did just make a break. And I ended up pulling my wire too hard and snapped it. So if you ever do that, if you ever come across a problem like that, since I broke the wire on my frame and the end is right here, I'm going to actually take that end with the end from my my spool, and I'm going to literally just twist them together. And by twisting them together, you can do it in a couple of different ways, but essentially you want it to be able to intertwine. And you should be able to make that good again. And I've actually folded it in half. I don't know how well you can see, but I've folded it in a way that will hopefully help it to stay together a little bit better. You can see it right here. And that way I can make it stay together better. So now I'll just continue wrapping my wire around my pieces and continue on. Now that we're pretty much done with the wreath, we're going to move on to an arrangement, a table arrangement. And I'm going to use this metal container that I got at the dollar store. The dollar store can be kind of your friend, and for $1.25, that's not so bad. So, like I mentioned before, you need a container, whatever type of container you want, and this floral foam. Now, this floral foam is pretty nice because it actually sucks in the water that we're going to put in here in just a little bit when we're done with the whole thing. Now, part of the reason why you want to use this foam, one is so it holds the water, and two, so it holds the actual stems of your greens better. And so, as you can see, it kind of comes apart, and we can use this in a couple of different ways. My initial response was to use it just as a block like this. But, depending on how you want to do your arrangement, you could have it a little bit shorter. So you may end up just using, like in the bottom here, two like this, or you can put them this way for across, or you can have them standing on top of it so you have two columns, kind of like I have here. So you can kind of see that there's just two, and it's a stack of two, one on top, two sets of two, you might say. And then when we're done, we're going to add some water in here, and it'll help hold the water and do better instead of just having it all soupy. So, I'm going to take this, set it aside. We don't need it anymore, so we can toss that. Now, we have plenty of greens left over from our wreath to add into here. Now, the one basic floral arrangement tip that I'm going to give, and I am no pro at floral arranging, is that generally there's a centerpiece that's tall, and you kind of go from there. In this case, since this is a little bit long, I'm going to do a little bit more of a fan shape. And since I kind of want it to be seen around, because I don't know if the person I'm giving this to will use it as a one-side wonder, or if it'll be seen all around. So I'm going to try to make it so that there's one tall piece, and it looks a little bit like a fan, so it'll kind of slope down this way, but also have a circular piece to it. So with that in mind, I have all the same greens that I used before. The holly, the Scotch broom, just all the great types of greens that I collected in the woods, but also from the tree lot. Now, the other thing I'm going to point out is that while we have nice tall pieces like this, we need floppy ones, and that's why I got the nice variety that I did. So, now that I have some of these, and I don't necessarily need to use my clippers anymore, although they are very helpful. These particular ones I have are not doing so hot. I should have probably gotten another pair. But what I'm probably going to do is, even though, there. So this one I ended up putting in the split. That's the other bit. Okay, try not to go right in the dead center. Otherwise, like, this piece won't hold. So if you need to put your your foam kind of off center, you still should have something in the middle for it to stick into. So it's pretty stable, because that's going to be your centerpiece, and you don't want it going all over the place. And in this case, it's going all over the place in part because I didn't make a smooth cut here. But in part, it's just not settling in to the foam well. So that's the other trick to this, is making sure that your pieces stick in the foam really well. So I really like this Scotch broom for some height and some shape. And so I'll probably use this as my base. The other thing too, I'm going to point out, this is the one item that does not smell well. And when I was living in Eastern Oregon, there was one green that I really wanted to get, and I got talking with somebody who'd lived around there for years, and I said, "Oh, I really want this." I wanted some sage, which is fine, but there was another type of pine, and I forget now the name of it. It'll come to me in a moment. But I really wanted to use it, but they said no. That's the one that you don't want to use in your home as a Christmas tree, because it smells like cat pee. And this is smelling similar. So if you want something that's pine fragrant, this is not it. Although it's not as bad as the other that I'm missing. So as you can see, it's kind of starting to tip. So this is where I'm going to have start putting in other pieces of greenery to help me balance it out a little bit. So right now it will tip just because there's nothing else in there. But as I build it up, it will make sure that it will stay. Now, because it's not staying on its own, I'm going to put something as a weight. So something else, as I kind of build this up, I'm going to start kind of going side to side. And that way it can help me see this fan that I'm going to do. And as you can see, this Scotch broom kind of goes off the view of the camera, but then this next piece kind of comes down a little bit. So I'm kind of trying to build in a little bit the shape that I want to put it together. You can even use it like a fan sort of look. Now, as we do this, remember, some of this isn't going to be seen. It's going to be more filler to help show off the other pieces. And that's just fine. And so, as I put this together, it's going to be kind of stuff that you may be like, why is she putting that there? It's helping to kind of fill in. And in the end, we want something that's nice and full, but we want to be able to see different textures, kind of like in the wreath. So now I'm starting to layer a little bit more in with some of the softer greens. Now this is a little bit droopy, and that's going to allow me to actually show a little bit more shape. And so while I'm not going to go for perfection here, again, the pieces will determine kind of where I put them. I don't want to be having a curve in, so if there's something that kind of has a curve to it, I'm going to turn it so it kind of curves out. So that'll depend on which side I put it on then. And so this will allow me to kind of build, so to speak, in a different way. But it'll also allow me to showcase a lot of the different greens that I've picked out. And as you can see, this last piece that I put in kind of has a little bit of the one that I'm moving, it kind of has a little bit of a curve out to the outside. And that will allow to kind of give a certain amount of shape to it. And some of the other pieces that I have, like for example, this hemlock, it has a nice fan to it. So depending on what I want to what look I want, I will kind of use this as more of a flowing piece. And I think I'll put something like this more here. And that starts to help me kind of have it come down a little bit. And some of these pieces of the hemlock are really a lot longer, and they are going to have this nice droop to them, which for this I really do like. So as I'm making this, I'm kind of seeing as it comes together that this side that's towards me is now becoming more of a back. And so you can kind of see it's a little bit flat. I hope you can see. While this part is becoming a little bit more shaped. And so by doing that, either I can now choose to extend it out and focus on making that side round too, like I initially wanted to. Or I can kind of make this in a way that allows it to be more one-sided. And either way is fine. It just depends on how it pans out. Sometimes putting pieces at an angle helps kind of with you might say the movement of your piece. And it allows you to kind of have a different look than had you just had everything all straight in. And so I will cut things at different angles and different lengths to help with that movement and variety within my centerpiece. Now you might hear me talking a little bit about movement and balance and say, what the heck does that have to do with plants? And in a way it does, and in a way it doesn't. But as the art person in me, I in a past life was an art teacher. Balance and all that good stuff and angles has a lot to do with how things look aesthetically. And so when we want to have things look kind of nice, and so we do things in certain ways to make it look that way or better. And so when we cut things at angles and different heights, that helps things have a little variation and make it so we have some interest. And if we're going to have a centerpiece like this, we want to have it be interesting. And so having the variation kind of helps out. And sometimes I will put things from a different, I'll try to put it from one side versus the other so I can actually see how it fills in the area that I'm looking to fill in. As I'm filling this in, you may be able to see that it's starting to have some depth now. And this is where I can start placing different pieces in front of each other to have a little bit different look to it. So as we get this going, you'll see just how it comes together. So as I'm coming down to kind of being a little bit happier with what this is doing, I'm actually going to be thinking about some added color or added difference to put into it. And what I've done is I've actually found at the dollar store these handy dandy fake things. And sometimes I like to add some sparkle or something different to each piece I do. And so that's what I'm going to see how these fit in to what this piece is. And since there are 4 of these, so 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm going to see if I can take the wire off and use each one in a different way. So I'm having a little bit of a hard time cutting these. If I had a wire cutter, I probably would be better off. But since I don't have one, I'm going to kind of tuck this in a little bit and see how to place these in a way that makes them blend in but stick out almost. And since I don't necessarily want the wire to show up from what these are on, I may try to manipulate the greenery to go around it. So that's a little bit about how I like to have this piece. It's not perfect, but it's kind of fun, I think. And so I may try to leave it at that and tuck him down here. So see, this is the fun part, where you think you're done and then you're not. I think for now I'll be done. But this cost me between the silver fake beads, the container, and the handy dandy foam. This was all of $3.75, which included all of what I did on my wreath as well. So for today, for all of $3.75, I was able to get 2 nice centerpieces for my home around the holidays. The most expensive one was this one right here at the $3.75 because I put the most in here from it. I needed the foam, the container, and the silver beads, although you could make it for less and not use those things. This is the wreath that I used. The bow was from last year. I ended up saving it and was able to use it again this year. Otherwise, all of this was what I gathered and was free. So you can make things like this to help spruce up your home for the holidays in a couple of different ways and be really kind of creative in how you use your money and how you kind of arrange things. And you can go free all you like, or you can spend all the money you like. Either way is fine. But sometimes when we're on a budget and we don't know kind of what to do to be creative, we need some guidance. And so I know for me, it's just so much simpler to be able to go out and do something like get some greens. And considering that you can go to any tree lot and get a variety of greens for free, they have to throw it away. So they want to get rid of it. So if you have that opportunity to go and get something for free and make something rather nice out of it, why not go do it? So I hope this has helped you kind of get in the holiday spirit and see how you can make things as well. And remember, on something like this, you don't have to make it this big. You can put something smaller together and make it just as nice. My mom likes to put together some just greens, a couple of stems of greens in a vase, like a bud vase. And she'll put it in different places around the house. You can even make a swag, which is kind of nice. And so sometimes you can use a swag um, to go over a mantelpiece. You can put it in a windowsill. You can put it in all sorts of different places. You can make a swag using just the greenery and the wire that I'd show you, the floral wire. That's about as simple and easy as you can get, and just make a nice long rope out of it. And you can kind of put it anywhere. So with that in mind, I hope that you were able to kind of start getting the holiday spirit. Whatever holiday you may celebrate at this time of year, it's always nice to have something festive around the home. And so thank you for stopping by the Traveling Homesteader and Gyroscope Farm. If you haven't hit the subscribe button yet, do it. It's all good. It doesn't hurt at all. I promise.